Alright guys, so I think I'm done. Finally. I think I'm done all this stuff. And if all goes well, when my heater gets here, I can, like the day after, start adding fish back into the 65 gallon. I am just waiting on a heater. I think it arrives it's the 6th now. Give or take a few days, the better part of 10 days. So, yeah, that'll be done. I got the pH pretty much settled in all my tanks. That tank's good. Never had any problems with it. It's small enough where it's easy to control. This tank pH was way too acidic. So is the other tanks. So I had some pH up, and I was using it on the other tank in there. I'll show you. I was using it on this tank. Now, you may notice everything's absolutely out of this tank. That's for good reason. I took the driftwood out so it wouldn't have any issues with the driftwood making the tank more acidic. So I'm just gonna move these coconut shells, because I have an idea for all of these driftwood and coconut shells that I'm going to do tonight, after our water changes while my buckets are free. Yeah, so as I was saying, this tank was too acidic. I finally fixed the ammonia problem in it. There's no stock in it because I removed them all once I noticed there was an ammonia issue. Well, before there was even an ammonia issue, back when I just had to do a reset on this tank because I was losing random fish. My cories were dying, my glass catfish were dying. Didn't know why. Checked this tank, couldn't find anything wrong with it. So I moved the fish all into the 20 gallon. By the way, this is also an update video. Some stuff has happened. So I moved everything to the 20 gallon, the quarantine tank, except for the roped catfish, which, as I've explained in the previous video, I moved to the 80 gallon, because it's the best spot for it, it fits. So I did that. I adjusted the pH in this with some pH up that I had to order. Most of the bottle is gone. Wonder how. So I kept messing with my pH, and I was using these pH, all these test strips. pH is at the very bottom. I was using those test strips, and I was testing the water, and I was like, this is still reading super acidic, but I've already added over half the bottle. Over half of the bottle. Little by little, and it was still reading as acidic. I got the my little API chemistry set there. Tested my pH, because I knew there was no way I was still having an ammonia issue, because I tested for that. I wasn't. Yeah, so I tested the pH. Quick little test. And the pH was way too high, meaning it was now way too alkaline. So I moved the thing. I moved it. Like I did a small water change on this tank. When I mean small, I literally just mean one bucket because that's all I had time to do on a day that I worked before work. Now it's my days off, so I can actually do this stuff. So I changed one bucket of water, came back this morning, tested it, and the pH was reading at 7.4, which is acceptable, perfectly acceptable. It's a nice little comfortable pH there. I tested the normal pH and the pH high pH. And I tested them both, and I'm reading 7.4 because I'm reading between results. So yeah, I did that. Got that done. Got that out of the way. Completed it. I was like, yes, pH is back to normal. I'm just doing a normal water change on this tank because I just vacuumed out the substrate, getting it ready for new fish. And I took some of this tank's water because this tank's water pH was, I knew it was at 7.4. Since I knew it was at 7.4 and I tested the pH in my other tank, I decided I'll add a couple buckets of this tank's water to the other tank. You know, should be fine. I'm not draining too much water, made sure I leave most of the water in there. I actually did a little experiment. I took some of that tank's water, and I took some of this tank's water. I filled about 8 ounces of this, which is about right here. It's a 16-ounce container. So I took about 8 ounces of this tank's water. I put it in here. I knew that this was 4 ounces. So I took this much of the other tank's water and I poured it in here, like so. And then I did a pH test on, I mixed it up with my finger because I want to mix it up. Then I did a pH test on this, and it came out comfortably to about 7, which is right about where I want it. Somewhere between, like, you know, let's say 7.2 and 6.8 is comfortable for me. Comfortable for my fish, all my fish species. Which is, you know, it's not super all over the place. It's a nice little, snug little area. Did that, tested it, and remember, I only changed about 25% of the, I guess it would have been a third. I only changed about a third of the water that I put in here. So I figured that's good. I added some normal buckets of tap water, took the water level down to about here, you know. I added some buckets of tap water, and then I added some buckets of the other tank's water, and here we are. I think this should be a comfortable pH. I did make sure to add it slowly, of course, and in between buckets of tap water, because I want to gradually make it better, right? Gradually change the pH. So hopefully that tank's fixed now and done with. I don't want to have to do that again. Now to the bad news. So, a few days ago, must have been like three days ago, I couldn't find the blind Cory. I checked this entire tank, scanned it all over, checked behind everything, pulled out the cave, checked in the cave, couldn't find it. Alive or dead. Then, because I wasn't paying super hard attention to this tank for a few days. Like, 'cause I was busy doing other stuff. The most I could do was like, okay, yeah, here's a little bit of food, I'm going to work. Have to do other stuff. You know, do a water change, do a small water change, have my coffee, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So I did find my Corydoras, or what was left of it. Crammed in here. When I say crammed in here, I literally mean, you see these things and how they got like a little gap in between the middle there, right around here? So I was looking through them and I found something lodged in there. And I instantly knew what it was. I knew because I could see, even from looking from the back of its skull, was the Cory's skull, the blind Cory's skull. Completely picked clean. And I also found its bones, or spines. And I think I know how it got stuck in there. Corydoras are catfish. They have barbs on their fins, the pectoral fins. So when it swam in there, I'm talking about this other one here, but I'm using this as an example because it's showing. When it swam in there, it got stuck. Its pectorals were out, it got locked in, it couldn't move. And my guess, after being locked in there enough, being unable to move or swim, and it died, the other fish came around. When I say the other fish, I'm talking, of course, about the yo-yo louches. I don't imagine the glass cats were able to get in there because their size. The guppies, and baby guppies, maybe even the other Corys. And the shrimp. And all I could find was bones. There was no flesh left, just bones. There's actually some of its bones still stuck in the bottom of this tank, which is good. Well, I can't vacuum this tank yet, not until these fish are out. So when I finally add them back, and I'm going to be adding them back slowly, it's fine, there's just bones and no meat in there because it's not rotting. When I finally get this tanked up, and everything's back to normal, and mind you, there's still about 10 days left until I can completely be done with this tank. When it's completely done, can vacuum the bones out, the last of the bones. I did remove the skull, but the rest of the bones, little spines, I can't get them. Can't get the vacuum in there. So I'll be moving everything out of this tank in the course of a few days. When I can get the temperature of that tank back up. So right now this tank is sitting, well, the water is sitting at about 62 degrees. It's been a cold couple days. We had a bunch of warm days where it was up at like 70, but it's been fairly cold in here. So when I finally get this tank done, I'm gonna add all, slowly, of course, add all the inhabitants, repeating myself. And then I can deal with this tank, and then the guppies can go back in there. As for the rope fish, he's just still in this tank. I saw it earlier. Now the rope fish will be moved in there at a later date. Basically when I'm absolutely certain that everything's back to normal in there. I'm going to be doing testing periodically. In the next 10 days, it's a 3-minute test, so it takes me no time. Of course, when I start adding the inhabitants, I'm going to be making sure there's no ammonia spikes or anything. There shouldn't be. There's plenty of beneficial bacteria built up. And yeah, that should do it. And it's basically all the updates that there is. When did I put that in my pocket? Alright, so I'm going to do one more pH test on this tank, because even though I did the little experiment, I want to see exactly where it is in this tank. See if it needs more or less. And hopefully, that'll be it. I am going to have to go to the aquarium store, well, the fish store, and get some things. Now I just really need essentials, basic stuff, so I'll probably be doing that tomorrow if I can, if I don't get called to work. I'll get some I'm pretty good on fish food for now, on most fish food, but I don't have any algae wafers, which is my issue. I have little crumbs left, so I will be doing that probably tomorrow. I'm trying to get everything done today so I can go tomorrow. If I see any plants that I like that I want to put in that 65 gallon, I will grab them too. Why? Because I need plants. Like, if you haven't noticed, the bottom of the tank, awfully sparse. And I want my rope fish to be plenty comfortable. So, but I see it. Get a bunch of plants. Well, I'll see if I can get a big Amazon sword, because I want a big Amazon sword. I'll put it in there. I want to have some more flowy plants. If I can't get those, I'll see if I can get that stuff I had before. You know, that stuff that grows like this tall. So all that matters is that they're tall plants. I want to fill out the top of this tank. Like, I've got some plants up top, sure. And I've got like the odd little plants down here, but they aren't big. They aren't impressive enough for me. They don't fill out the tank. That's what I'm saying. So when I do that, when I go and get food tomorrow, because that's what I'm mainly going for, I will check. Ouch. I will check and see if they have what I'm looking for. They should. I'm hoping they do. But they'll definitely have algae wafers. So plants are a secondary thing, of course, because I don't need those as bad as I need the food. Fish hunger comes first. And yeah. That should be it. Just, you know. Finish. I'm going to be removing all this driftwood, putting them in buckets, and soaking them in a higher pH water for the rest of the night. Because, you know, it's a pretty soft wood. Same with these coconut shells. Pretty soft wood. And I would rather have them in a higher pH that way, because I know the pH in that tank is going to drop regardless. But if I can absorb some of that higher pH into that wood, I won't have to worry about it messing with my water too much. I've boiled all that wood to hell and back, but it's never enough. I'm thinking I might take out some of this driftwood in exchange. I do have to do a rescaping because I'm removing all the driftwood. Pleiko's not going to have a place to sleep tonight, but I'll keep the lights off. It'll be comfortable. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Peace.